I'll make one more point if I can. How much more time do I have to go on? Should
Just wrap up time, yeah, for questions, so we can have time for questions. Make the point, though.
Right.
As many points as you want.
Okay. The point here is that there are two rationales, there are two purposes that I can see today for Jewish power. The first is self-evident, and that is to keep the Jews safe. And I would say that the exaggerated antipathy that Jewish power has aroused in large parts of the world, the fact that Jewish power has become the symbol for many people around the world of the evils of power generally, that it's Jewish power that has become this symbol, proves the necessity for Jewish power. If you can understand that leap. And if that's not clear, then please stop me. Which it means that the hatred of Jews is so deeply embedded in certain parts of humanity that sooner or later Jews would have found themselves endangered anyway, from one source or another. And it might as well, that hatred might as well surface against Jewish power, because Jewish power can protect itself. So if we have to deal with a resurgence of anti-Semitism, let it be directed against Jewish power. The second point that I would want to make is that the diasporist sense that Jewish power is now counterproductive and that it is now endangering us is true among the circles that they mingle with. It's true among academics, it's true among liberals. It happens not to be true among large parts of certainly the United States and other parts of humanity, for whom power remains a source of respect. A people that takes care of itself tends to be respected by most human beings, rather than demonized. And most of the world, in fact, is blue collar and not ivory tower. And Israel, for better and for worse, is basically a blue collar country. And one of the reasons I believe that we're seeing this playing out of an antipathy from parts of the diaspora, especially Jewish academia, is in part a class clash. Israel is a blue-collar Jewish expression, and it makes white-collar Jews increasingly uncomfortable. And this was brought home to me in a conversation that I had with a woman from Moscow. She was a recent, I spoke to her a few years after she moved to Israel. And she said to me, she said, one of the great shocks that I had when I came to Israel was in discovering that there are dumb Jews. She said, in Moscow, every Jew I knew was a genius, an intellectual. And she said, it took me a long time to understand why that was. Because in Russia, we had to be better than everybody else to be considered just as good. In Israel, we're not a community, an endangered minority, we're a people. And therefore, a people can be like any other people. And every people, there are smart Russians and there are dumb Russians. And that's Israel. Israel is a people. And that is a challenge to some diaspora Jews who conceive of the Jewish people as a community that reflects me. In the diaspora, you can do that. You can divide into communities. You can choose your community. In Israel, we don't have that luxury. In Israel, we are all in each other's face all the time because we are a people. And those Jews who are uncomfortable with that, who don't want to have to deal with Jews who they don't like, or Jews who are not like them, or blue-collar Jews, that makes those Jews, the community-oriented Jews, uncomfortable about the consequences of nation. The last part. Oh no, I have one more part here. Sorry. All right, I'll try to end with this part. Maybe I'll sneak it in our question and answer. The second purpose today for Jewish power, and here I'm going to say something that will really just be totally unpalatable to many Jews in the diaspora and some Jews in Israel. I don't think as many in Israel, but certainly some here as well. This is really not PC. And that is that a clear contemporary justification for the reconstitution of Jewish power is that it enables us to fight evil. Over the last 70 or 80 years, the Jewish people has been targeted successively by 3 totalitarian forces, each of which aspired to world conquest. Nazi Germany, and all 3 of them targeted the Jewish people as their main obstacle to achieving world conquest. Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, Soviet communism, which targeted international Jewish finance, the Jews control Washington, and finally jihadism. For me, as a religious Jew, I see a clear pattern here. And what that means to me is that intrinsic to the Jewish experience, certainly in our time, is the confrontation with evil, and is the Jewish people as a break, B-R-A-K-E, against forces of evil that aim to conquer the world and remake the world in their image. And this is the third phase, the most difficult. And if you look at each of those threats, we were successively empowered. Obviously, with Nazi Germany, we were almost totally helpless. With the Soviet Union, it took us many decades before we were able to figure out a strategy to begin challenging the Soviet Union, and ultimately we won. And Sharansky's argument, which I think has a lot of validity to, is that the Soviet Jewry movement, both within and without the Soviet Union, helped ultimately bring down the Soviet Union, erode the self-confidence of the Soviet Union. And finally, now the phase we are in, the war against jihadism, when we are in a full-fledged war, and in one way or another, all of our power is eventually going to be marshaled for this life and death struggle. So the pattern that I see emerging is fighting evil. I'll